Good evening, everyone. Can we do a sound check and audio visual before we go ahead and get started? So if you can just type in the chat and let me know that you can hear and see me. Thank you, Claudia. Thank you. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and get started now. Good evening. My name is Lexi Nawrocki, and I am a field consultant with nutraMetrix. So I am out there building my business just like you guys every single day. Today, the topic of what we're going to be talking about is the psychology of the discovery meeting. This is part two, so to speak, of my, original meet on earlier this week, of the intake or the initial walk-in. So when we talked about the initial walk-in earlier, we talked about both a cold and a warm. And one of the things I had asked you and I posted is to make sure that you went ahead and you printed out the discovery meeting form. So we're actually going to be going through that. So if you didn't get a chance to print it out, or if you have to go get it, I'm going to be talking about a few things before I dig into the questions and the details in the questions. So I'll give you a few minutes to go ahead and print that out. So where we left off is we have an appointment, wonderful, yay. And for some of you, the first discovery meeting appointment can be a little daunting. The wonderful thing I think about this form, which we're going to talk about in a lot of detail, is that you can literally just read verbatim each and every one of the questions. So, of course, before you get started with any meeting that you do, the discovery meeting, there's a couple of things that you want to keep in mind. So first of all, when you book the appointment, was the appointment warm or was the appointment cold? That's going to matter for a couple of reasons. If the appointment is warm, if you remember from last time, one of the tips I left you with is don't shortchange the process. Still go through the discovery meeting and ask the questions and try to identify the mission and the vision of the health professional. However, if the initial appointment or the initial contact was cold, you have a little bit more work to do. And so that's kind of what we're going to talk about today, because as most of you know, about 98% of my discovery meetings have been cold. And so when you're ready, before you actually come in for the discovery meeting, there's a little bit of homework you got to do. The first thing is you probably picked up the health professional's business card. And you want to go ahead, and we have a form in the nutraMetrix NC planning guide that's called the pre-call form. So one of the things you want to do with the pre-call form is it's set up for you to prepare for your meeting. So you'll, of course, know the address, and that seems a little funny, the address. But when you're first starting, you have like 2 appointments. You know where the doctors are. As you get better and you have a lot of appointments, it's happened to me, put the address in your actual calendar book so you know which one it is, or staple the business card or put it in your phone or whatever you want to do. So have the address, have the website, go on the website, fill out that form, like what are some of the things that you're finding on the website? What's the primary condition? Do they have education? The different tabs, do they have different tabs? Do they sell product? Do they have a blog? And so all of these things you're going to make your notes into your pre-call worksheet. And that's going to kind of help you mentally prepare. You're not necessarily going to take that sheet and share it with the health professional. That sheet is more for you and for your files. And if this health professional moves along the process and actually becomes an account of yours, what I find is I create a binder, and I create for every one of my nutraMetrix accounts. I have important things in there, like their certificates of their license, of course, the pre-call worksheet, the discovery meeting, a lot of things that will help me to kind of keep that vision and mission of the health professional at the forefront of my mind always. Because believe it or not, you're going to get some information at the discovery meeting that is not only important and essential for you to go ahead and do the proposal, But it's also going to be really important and essential for you as you move forward with the health professional. Maybe you're having your first quarterly meeting or a 6-month review and you're struggling with the account for whatever reason. You could turn back to the discovery meeting and you find out that, hey, in one of the questions, the doctor said he was looking to retire in 2 to 3 years and wanted to make X number of dollars in order to do that. So sometimes these are good things to bring up, when you run into certain challenges. So that's going to be important that you're prepared. So when you walk into the health professional's office, and you're always, I make it always arrive 15 minutes early. I never want to be on time, and heaven forbid, I never, ever want to be late. If I'm late, there better have been an accident on the road or something, because you always want to plan to be 15 minutes early. So I'll arrive, I'll greet the gatekeeper, I'll say, how are you? I have an 11 o'clock appointment with the doctor. They'll say, oh yeah, great. And they'll ask you to sit down. So I sit down and I wait. While you're waiting, it's really important to look around, especially if the health professional doesn't have a website. Believe it or not everybody does. Or maybe they have a very basic website and they haven't updated it. You gotta look around. What do they have on the walls? What kinds of pamphlets? What types of information are they giving to their patients? Do they have any other products on the shelf? What's even the interaction between the gatekeepers? What's going on in the practice? It kind of gives you a little bit of an understanding of who the doctor is, even in the personality. For example, earlier this week, I had a discovery meeting with a pediatrician, and I posted about it. I thought it was funny because she was doing her nails. That kind of gave me a message of if she has the ability to do her nails while she's at work, the doctor must be somebody who they have a good relationship, or it's a doctor that maybe isn't, very high strung, or maybe isn't like, very strict, and then it just has, certain liberties with their staff. So that tells me something about the doctor, potentially the relationship. Now, yeah, I'm kind of making an assumption. I'm not making an assumption. I'm making an observation. And I could potentially kind of take that forward into the actual appointment. Okay, so open the door and the doctor brings me in, or the staff brings me in. There are times where the doctor will come out to see you in the waiting room. Okay, so something really important that happens here. If you're working with cold contacts, and the staff gave you an appointment, and then the staff person didn't really tell the doctor, didn't really check with the doctor, you just were convincing and she gave you that appointment, and then she kind of forgot about it, and maybe she got sick the day that you came in, and now you're there with your discovery sheet in hand, and you're getting ready to meet the doctor, and the doctor has no idea who you are, no idea whether you're there, no idea why this person put you on their calendar. So sometimes the doctor will come out and be very guarded. So immediately what I do in the first few seconds when I know that that's the situation is I'll say, oh, doctor, my name is Lexi. I'm a business consultant. What I do. And kind of everything I talked about in the intake, I'm sorry, I keep saying intake, the initial contact, when I'm trying to request the appointment, I do that 10, 12-second pitch all over again for the doctor. Believe it or not, it may sound to you like even scarier. So we were talking about this fear of this theme of fear. It may seem to you even scarier to kind of do that pitch to the actual doctor. But let me put you at ease. When you do the pitch to the doctor directly, you are so much more likely. Your odds of getting that appointment go through the roof. I think I have done about maybe 5 or 6 pitches directly to doctors, and there's only one, he was a dentist, literally put his head down and then turned to his office manager and said, you deal with this. And she pretty much said no and shooed me out the door. All the rest of them booked the appointment, because when I did the call earlier this week, I said when we walk in the door, we look like reps. And I said that's a good thing, because at least they have a frame of reference, right? But when you do your little 10 to 12-second pitch, you're no longer a rep, you're a business consultant, and you're not selling something, you're just asking to understand who the doctor is. Doctors kind of like that. They also like that because now they're curious. This is different than I've ever experienced before. So once you do that, there has been one time, and only one time, where I've shown up for a discovery meeting, And the doctor has actually said to me, you know what? I don't think this is something I'm interested in. Goodbye. Fine. I leave. But then when I get escorted into their office, I sit down, I have my discovery meeting out, and I start to write into it. So one of the things that you'll hear me say over and over again is when you do a discovery meeting, bring the piece of paper. Don't wing it. Once you know all the questions memorized, don't just like ask the questions. Sometimes you'll say, oh, and you want to kind of seem natural in a conversation, so maybe I'm not going to write it down. That's a huge mistake, okay? And I'm going to, instead of telling you, I'm going to show you. So what I've done is, in all my time in doing this, is I've taken all of the discovery meetings and I have them all written out. So just to show you a few, this is the most recent one on the new form that I've done. You see all this chicken scratch. And furthermore, you see misspellings, you see just shorthand things. But what's happening is that I'm taking copious notes and I'm writing everything down. And as I'm doing that, the doctor is watching me write stuff down. And that's really, really important. And the doctor is literally watching me write down what they are telling me pretty verbatim. We're going to come back to that. So when I sit and I meet with the doctor and I pull out the discovery sheet that's blank, you can, if you want, fill out the top part, the address, the name, from the information you gathered on the website. You can totally do that. That's absolutely okay. You've done your pre-call worksheet. You definitely could fill that out. Me personally, I used to do that and I don't do that anymore. And it's just a Lexi superstition. Every time that I have sat in a health professional's office and I've started to fill this out, something happens and I actually don't get to see the health professional. They either say no thank you or something happens. So I myself have a superstition that if I start filling this out, it's a no. So I don't do it anymore. That's just my own kind of funny thing, but you can go ahead and do it. So before I even start, writing this, I know the questions. And if this is the first time you've ever done a discovery meeting, again, I'm not going to get tired of saying it over and over. Study the questions, know what you have, know the form. Don't be fumbling through like, oh wait, was I supposed to ask that? And oh, I missed the natural alternative questions. No. Know your questions, and you're a professional. You're a professional business consultant. Act like a professional business consultant. Okay? Okay, so now we're going to start going through the form, so I hope you have it in your hands. The top part is the name and the address of the practice. I'm not going to go through on today's call verbatim for each question, but I am going to talk about each question. I'm going to give you the gist of each question. I remember when I went to, it was my first or my second nutraMetrix training, and what I recommend is if you are serious about making nutraMetrix your specialty and this is your division, we only have to go to a nutraMetrix training every 2 years. If you're a professional, you're going every single year. Just make it a habit. So on one of these trainings I went to, I don't remember if it's a meet on or training, I don't remember who said it, but I remember somebody saying, there's a logic to the questions, and we've created this discovery questionnaire, or the 15-minute questionnaire as it used to be called, so that it's going to help you answer objections that you'll get later in the proposal. So when I first started working with nutraMetrix, I didn't quite understand what that meant, but I heard it. So I was like, okay, let's see. As I started working and doing more and more discoveries and doing more proposals, I realized that that is a very true statement, okay? Not only are the questions on here that we're going to review help you to prepare for a proposal and help you to identify what you're going to show, but the questions on here also are going to give you a leg up when you're doing the proposal. And at the proposal, okay, you're actually selling, right? It's seamless. It doesn't sound like you're selling. You're identifying the mission and vision. It flows really nicely when you get good at it. But let's just call the spade a spade. You're selling. And what happens is that when you get there, and when we talk about the proposal, I'll kind of pick up what we're talking about right now and take it to that end as well. you have to have some arrows in your quiver about how are you going to handle objections. The most common one is, I can't sell. I'm a doctor. I went to medical school because I want to help my patients. If I wanted to be a salesperson, I would have gone to business school or sales or something like that. It's a big objection. You're going to have to talk about. We have a whole meet on designed, and I'll post that soon, on how do you answer the question, I cannot sell. But there'll be other questions too, that objections too, that'll come up. Okay, and this form is really designed to help you get all the information, all the arrows in your quiver, so you can pull out the right one when needed. But it's also going to help you to identify, what am I going to talk about when we get to the proposal, okay? So we're going to identify how many health professionals. That's important also to kind of identify the structure, but also the relationship. I like to ask, as you kind of get more comfortable, you'll ask it'll flow like conversation. It's the same with Market America. As you're building your Market America business, we talk about 3-foot rule, we talk about certain questions, and we talk about form. But then what happens is that you volley a little bit better as you get more experience. So with the experience, you'll be able to volley a little bit. Okay, so locations, how many locations? This just gives you an indication sometimes of also patient base. When we get to the total number of patients, the doctor will sometimes, doctors that have multiple locations will sometimes tell you, well, I have 5,000 in this practice and I have 3,000 in this practice and I'm just growing this practice, etc. So it'll just kind of help you identify as you move into the proposal and even into the implementation, if it becomes your account, what am I going to start with? What's a phase 1? What's a phase 2? What's a phase 3? The next question you have is number of staff members, the web address, and then we really start with it. So the first question right out of the gate is, I've done research on your practice, and I've noted that the primary specialty is pediatrics. Is that correct? Well, if you're in the pediatric office and you see the toys and everything, that's pretty much an assumption. So I would probably, in that case, I would probably say, so you specialize in pediatrics, correct? Yes. Believe it or not, the health professionals are very appreciative of you doing your homework. So that's why going on the website and filling out the pre-call worksheet is actually important, because of the fact that they're like, she's looked at my website. She knows my blogs. She knows my education. They kind of tend to perk up a little bit and they respect you a little more too because you've done your homework. So the next one is, are there any other specialties? It's interesting because when you start asking this question of, are there any other specialties, you're going to find doctors who are in like family medicine who have like, cardiology as a specialty, or weird associations. And sometimes you'll be like, how did that happen? And explain it to me a little bit more. The discovery meeting I just did, she said, oh yeah, well, I'm pretty much just pediatrics. And I said, well, do you have any other specialties? Well, I'm passionate about homeopathic medicine. Great. Okay. So then the next is, okay, specialties, areas of interest. What would you say are the 3 most common patient concerns in your practice? Usually when you're dealing with something like, pediatrics, unless there is a specialized, like a pediatric ophthalmologist or something like that, it's pretty much going to be, general health, vaccinations, etc. But, that question when you're dealing with, different specialties can get pretty interesting, and you can get a variety of things. And so usually they'll say something like, metabolic syndrome or diabetes or obesity, or, and they just mention a number of things, and I'm just writing them all down. Okay? The reason that we want to identify the primary specialty, special areas of interest for the doctor, and the 3 most common patient concerns of those is because that's actually going to help us to start structuring what types of products or combination of products are we going to offer when we present a proposal and we do a small, medium, or large. Okay? Then we move into wellness services for the patient. Understand that a lot of doctors will answer the question of wellness services for the patients as, yes, I provide vaccinations, I provide pamphlets, I provide information. To them, in their mind, those are wellness services. The other thing you're going to find is a doctor may be stumped by this question. I find that this question stumps a lot of doctors, especially doctors that just do like pamphlets or vaccinations and they kind of don't know what to say. If you're working with a doctor who is like more of, a CAM, not necessarily a traditional medicine, but more of a, word is escaping me at this point, but a holistic type of doctor, they're going to do a lot more with wellness services. And you'll find that you'll go towards one doctor more than another. Initially, when I started doing my cold contacts, any doctor that was on our approved list of doctors I visited. I still kind of do that today, but if I see an ophthalmologist, it's not one of my favorites, so I'll kind of be like, yeah, I'm skipping that one. So you'll kind of know which ones you like and which ones you'd like to approach. I prefer a traditional MD. My father used to be a family practice doctor. He was a family practice doctor that did not believe in wellness, did not believe that we needed a multivitamin, but I'm just very used to dealing with an MD, so I actually prefer to work with that kind of doctor. Okay, so wellness services. The next question is, if yes, then what? Usually if you ask them already, what do you have for wellness services? You don't have to ask if yes, then what? They'll tell you the what. And then the next question is, do you provide natural alternatives, or for patients who want to say, I want to try it myself? Again, depending on who you're asking that question is going to depend on whether they're stumped or whether they can answer it right away. That question and the next question, do you recommend, a good multivitamin and omega? They're actually two very different types of questions. When I first started doing these 15-minute appointments, to me, and I was, very ignorant and holistic type of medicine. When I actually first started with nutraMetrix, I didn't believe in chiropractic care. I didn't know what a chiropractor really did. And the interesting thing is that then I went to my chiropractor, who was amazing and resolved a whole ton of problems that I was having. So my level of education with holistic care and my knowledge and my understanding began to really increase as I've been doing this type of work. And I've been working with different doctors and you guys in the field, some of the consultants that are, homeopathic doctors or holistic doctors, you guys have taught me, or health professionals, you guys have taught me so much. And so now I understand that these questions are actually different. So there are some doctors, like the one I just met this week, who do all types of natural alternative medicines, homeopathic type of medicines that are considered a medicine, they are considered a drug, and so they're kind of governed by the FDA. As you know, we are DSHEA, and we have to be DSHEA compliant, but we're not a food, and we're not a drug. Whereas the next question of, do you recommend a good multivitamin? So these two questions are going to be really important, because if the patients are asking the doctor whether they have natural alternatives and the doctor does not, we want to know what percent of the patients are asking this question. Usually, and it's interesting because the doctor I met with this week told me the exact same thing that I already knew. Usually patients who seek natural alternatives will go to a doctor that is more geared towards that versus a different type of doctor. So this question, if you're dealing with a very traditional MD who's got a certain mindset and philosophy, he or she may say no, or very 5-10% ask me about natural alternatives. I think back to myself before my nutraMetrix days. I knew what a multivitamin was. I knew what an omega was, obviously, but I did not necessarily understand or know that there were natural alternatives to care other than a traditional MD type of perspective. So it's in the education. So that one, you're going to want another percent. But the next one is absolutely by far, in my mind, the zinger. It's the zinger, and it's the one that's going to be the start to answering the objection, which we'll do a whole meet on later, of I can't sell. It's, doctor, do your patients ask you to recommend a good multivitamin or omega? Omega-3 fish oil. Yes or no? And I don't even say yes or no, I just say, do they ask you to recommend? And you'll get almost always you'll get a yes. Yes. So I say, about what percent would you say, doctor? If it's less than 20 or 30%, it's usually zero. And I can look through all the discovery meeting forms. I don't think I have a doctor. I had a doctor say zero, had a few, but mostly it's 20, 30. The doctor I met with this week said 80 to 90% of her patients are asking this question. So what do you reply, doctor? That's what I say. So after I get the percentage, 60, 70%, I say, what do you reply to? What do you say, doctor? And they're going to tell you, and you must write this down, what they say. So they'll say to you, well, I tell them to go to the GNC or to the Walgreens and just pick one off the shelf. I write it down. Walgreens, pick one off the shelf. Or will I tell them to go here and just get whatever? Or I tell them that they don't need a multivitamin. I've had doctors say this to me. I tell them that they don't need a multivitamin. It's a waste of their time and money. Okay? So this is going to tell you a lot about kind of what you're dealing with. Not just this question, but a lot of the others. I've been asked, if you're getting a no, meaning, no, I have zero patients asking me for natural alternatives. No, none of my patients are asking me for a multivitamin. No, I'm not interested in weight loss. I have zero patients that come in here with obesity. No, I'm not interested in testing. No, if you're getting no, 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 here's where you kind of have to make a judgment call. One of my third or fourth discovery meetings that I ever did was with a dentist. Great guy, lovely guy, love him to death. And he was telling me no, 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 all the way to the end of the discovery form. And I remember Reed Prescott saying this phrase of, you always want to say the phrase of, well, doctor, would it add value to fill in the blank? So I got to the very end, and I was about to close the folder and say, you know what, doctor, thank you for your time, but I don't think you'd be a good fit for the practice. I don't think we would be a good fit for your practice. And I didn't want to say that. And I didn't want to say that not because it was my fourth discovery meeting. I didn't have any accounts at that point. I didn't want to say that because I liked the guy and I liked his staff and it was a warm environment and it was wonderful and I didn't want to close the door. So I said, doctor, I had already asked the mission vision question, which is on here, the 5-10 years in the future. I said, where do you see yourself? He said, well, I have this one location and I have 2 dental chairs. I would have liked to expand. I don't necessarily want to expand anymore, but I'd like to add, I have the space, I'd like to add 2 more dental chairs and some more assistants. So I said, would it bring value to your practice to have a customized wellness solution in it that would differentiate you from the 5 other dentists on the street? And he immediately turned and he goes, it would. And we booked a proposal. Long story on that is he's still kind of hanging out, watching me, send me a friend request on Facebook. He's watching me. He's my child's dentist. He's going to be my dentist. I love him to death. Still not an account, but he will eventually be an account. So the point I'm trying to make is if it's a no, 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 that does not necessarily mean that you can't find something to turn it into a proposal. However, if it's a no, 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 and the doctor is just somebody you don't want to work with, and the practice is just, for whatever reason, it's just not really feeling like something you want to move forward with, it's absolutely okay to say, you know what, thank you so much for your time, doctor. I don't think this is a good fit for your practice at this time. Here's my business card. If anything changes, why don't you give me a call? If you want to give them a call in a year, that's fine. I have a couple forms in here of about 3 discovery meetings that I've walked away from because I just haven't felt that it's right. And I've done that in the middle. So don't be afraid to do that. Okay, so multivitamin, really important. We're going to look at the response to these 2 natural alternatives and multivitamins more as we move into preparing for a proposal and as we move into doing the proposal and as we move into answering the question, the objection of I can't sell. But then we're going to go to what is the current protocol for the patients who require weight loss. You're going to get a variety of answers here. you're going to get we have an in-house nutritionist who takes care of that, or we send it out, we refer out to a organization, or we have XYZ. So write this down. I think that in this question, you're probably going to get the most variation, especially if you're dealing with different specialties. And you will have some doctors that will actually say to you, you know what, we don't really have anything. And I always like, and it says, here at what point do you refer to specialist? I always like to kind of have the doctor think in terms of quantity. So it doesn't say what percent, but if he or she starts to engage me in this question and say, well, I've been thinking about it for a while, that maybe I should have a weight loss program, maybe I should do something with that. My colleague did that and it's going really well. And so engage them. If this health professional is starting to talk about any one question here, you continue. You have a second question. This is where you create a volley and you just start asking question after question after question, because you're going to find out, is this the type of health professional that would be ideal for our TLS or TLS Select? I'm starting to work with one of my own accounts on TLS Select. When I met her and we did her discovery about a year ago, she said to me, 60% of my patients are morbidly obese. So that's something that, okay, ding, 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 TLS Select, that rings a bell in my head, okay? That's what that question is. So then the next question is education. Do you provide education on prevention to your patients, whether in the office or on the website? What you're going to find is some doctors have educational blogs. They have the pamphlets that pharma companies give them, about diabetes, eating well, etc. A lot of the materials I see in regular traditional MD doctors about diabetes, and it's still kind of dealing with the food pyramid that we were taught in grade school, and those types of things. So definitely not low glycemic, definitely not lifestyle. So that's pretty big. But the other thing also with regard to education is, we have this wonderful educational materials, and we have the wellness brochures. I love, love, love the wellness brochures. I love the wellness number line. We're going to talk a lot about the wellness brochures, not a lot, but a fair amount when we get into the proposal, because it is a home run, guys. If you haven't ordered the packet of wellness brochures and you don't bring it to every single proposal, you are missing out. That is a home run. So I have doctors tell me when I ask do you provide education? I have a doctor who I'm waiting to get her started any moment. She almost went to Miami. She's a lover to death. We've gotten out together and everything, had dinner. She's just one of these people that's really hard to get a hold of. When we met, she told me that she would spend time creating literature on her own, doing her own research, her own lit review, so to speak. She would write stuff out for the patients. When I showed her that number line system, she almost fell off her chair because it was exactly what she was doing. It was almost a sin. She showed me all these files all this time. So ask the question, okay? And then we have any testing for the patients. Testing for the patients, this question you think to yourself, this is GeneSNP. That's why I'm being asked this question. It's so much more than GeneSNP, guys. When you ask testing and you ask, do you do any type of testing? Some doctors actually will look at me and be like, what do you mean by testing? And I'll help them out a little bit. I don't want to give it away, but I help them out a little. And I say, well, like blood work, homocysteine levels, and that's about, and then they go, oh yeah, we do this testing, we do that, we do saliva testing, we do that, and I'm writing it all down. And then we do this other testing, and then we do hair testing. I've had one that did follicle testing and urine analysis and saliva. And I said, oh, great. And what are you trying to achieve? And then, well, with this test, I want to know vitamin D levels. And with this test, I want to know this. And with this test, and they get really, especially the ones that are really passionate about the testing that they do, which is a service, right? It's a wellness service. They'll start telling you, oh, and I do it for this reason. Okay, doctor, and when you've done all this testing, what do you do with this information? It's kind of a natural volley question. It's not on the form. But again, the more that you talk to doctors, the better that you get. Remember, I just told you, I didn't know anything about holistic medicine, so I stayed away from it. Okay, But as you start learning it, you get more comfortable. So you'll start that volley. Because now that's going to tell you vitamin D. Okay, great. They send them, some doctors prescribe vitamin D. Other doctors do B complex shots or B shots. Other doctors do this. So you could kind of now start to identify in your mind, okay, this is what I'm going to put together for a small, medium, and large for the products for the proposal section. Okay? So then we have, do you currently provide any anti-aging solutions? When I'm working with a pediatrician, I don't ask this question. Maybe I should ask for the parents. I just kind of feel like I did it one time and the doctor kind of looked at me squirrely and I was like, okay, I don't think I'll ask that again. So I kind of crossed that off. But for the most part, I do ask that. Anti-aging is a huge field. I've actually met doctors that specialize in anti-aging. There's all this board certifications you can do in anti-aging, and they're few and far between. So, for somebody to implement anti-aging solutions is very attractive to these doctors. Okay, and then when you move on to the next page of the discovery meeting, and you could kind of photocopy these back to back. When I first printed out a whole bunch of these, and I printed it into 2 pages, and I kind of didn't like it, and I was like, what do I do to kind of make it easier? And then somebody said to me, well, you're being silly. Why don't you just print it on one page and then print it on the other and then just have one form with the back to back? Well, I was like, yeah, that was smart. So you could do that too. So then it's like, okay, would you like to provide, would it provide value to you in the practice to have career advancements and financial incentive programs for your staff? Interestingly enough, and as we move forward, we'll talk a little bit more about incentive programs. They are awesome to incentivize the staff to, be more involved in the process once you implement, of course. This question always seems to stump the doctors that I've interviewed, during the discovery meeting. Sometimes they say, yeah. Sometimes they say, well, what do you mean by that? So just kind of be prepared. This question here just is assessing how open they would be to implementing certain types of staff incentives or, other things like that. Generating revenue question. In addition to generating revenue, we look for other ways to, I'm sorry, I skipped. The realizing that everything in the office must generate revenue in order to be worth your while. How much revenue do you think a wellness program should generate on an annual basis? That's how I ask it. 95% of the health professionals say, I don't know. I have no idea. I used to kind of push them for a number a little bit, and then I learned, just leave it alone. I've only had one health professional say to me, if you can't generate me $50,000 a year, don't come back. So, it happens. Then the next one was, in addition to generating revenue, would it be of value to you to save money in everyday things like office supplies, medical supplies? And they kind of look at you like, yeah, sure, absolutely, why not? So, yes, okay? It fits because if you've introduced yourself as a business consultant, you're not just worried about, the wellness aspect of their business, but you're worried about, cost savings anywhere that you can save them. You're worried about the entire business, their social media presence, their website, their merchant services. Come on, we're a product broker. We got everything. And then when we talk about the revenue expectations and the total number of patients and the weekly number of patients, some doctors at this point are kind of like, when I say what's the total number of patients seen weekly, they don't hesitate. I've asked this question in the US and in Mexico, never hesitation. 20 to 30, 70 to 80, 40 to 60 in this practice. Over here, I got 20, 30 in the other practice. And then when I say, what's your total patient base? I don't know why this question stumps them. They're like, well, what do you mean? Like active patients that come see me or like total in my files? And yeah, just total number. 3,000, 4,000, 5,000. And I write that down. Okay. Okay, so we finished that. I'm getting ahead of myself. Then the next one is, of course, looking forward 5, 10, 15 years. This is one of the questions we just brought into the form, a few months ago when we changed things out. We've kind of always talked about the mission and vision of the doctor. I introduce myself and I say, I'm looking to understand your mission and vision. So if you start asking the mission and vision, which is the why question early on, I find that you can thread that why, like that whole Simon Sinek why, you can thread it through the entire process of nutraMetrix. So you start it at the introduction, who I am and I want an appointment, and because I need to understand the mission and vision, then at the discovery meeting, I need to understand the mission and vision, doctor, where do you see yourself 5, 10, 15 years from now? Then at the proposal, we align it with the mission and vision, etc. And then we'll talk about all the other places. And the reason that we want to go ahead and do that is like I said, with the dentist, okay? So he was not familiar with wellness solutions, very new, very foreign, but he knows kind of what he wants in his vision for his practice. He knows where he wants to go in the future. And so he's still open, got a very open mind to identifying maybe customized wellness solutions could help me. I'm not sure right now, which is where he's at, but maybe it could help me. So because you touch on the vision and mission, you're no longer a rep. You're really, truly a business consultant. You care about this doctor. And so that's really important to them. One of the last questions, of course, is we'd like to go ahead and schedule a 30-minute. I say we'd like to go ahead and schedule a 20 to 30-minute, meeting, who needs to be available. Oh, this one, the office manager, etc. Okay, great. Because what I want to do is I want to take all the information that you provided to me, and I want to create, a proposal with financial projections and the actual implementation strategies that I'm going to recommend for your practice. So do I schedule that with the Dorothy at the front desk, or, is Tuesday or Thursday better for you? And I kind of am locking them into an appointment already. Most of the discovery meetings that I do will lead to a proposal. What happens is that at the discovery meetings, you piqued their curiosity and you haven't told them anything. The last question on this form is, Doctor, do you have any questions for me? A lot of consultants are scared to ask the question. Don't be, because they say to you, no. And what cracks me up is that I have told them nothing about what I do, about what we do. I mean, we've customized wellness solutions, whatever the heck that means, yet they have no questions. They were perfectly content giving you a whole bunch of information that I hope you wrote down on that form in their presence, and they are happy as a clam. And then if they give you that appointment to come back, now, and what I like to say to doctors, they say, no, I don't have any questions. Great. I said, well, when I return, I'm going to come with the proposals and I'm going to leave all the information, and I've kind of gotten to know them a little bit at this point. So, couple things I want to mention. So I want to go back. A couple things I want to mention about this form. We already talked about writing everything down on it. Try not to shortchange it. If your 15 minutes got turned into 10 minutes or 5 minutes, just kind of highlight as much as you possibly can, and you'll go back to the website, fill it in. The important ones are natural alternatives, the multivitamin, omegas, etc. But the other thing that I wanted to talk about with the discovery meeting is that when you leave, or when you're in that session with the doctor, and especially if it's cold, this is your opportunity to warm it up. If you saw something in the waiting room that caught your eye. One time I was in the waiting room of a health professional and I saw the little videos that kind of went through, and he did vein care, cardiovascular, things like that. And I saw the veins coming through and the pictures of surgeries, and he did everything, aesthetics, and I saw some of that. And then I saw sporadically in there, I saw running stuff, and I saw him with like a running bib, and I saw him with medals, and I saw him at races, and it's kind of awkward how he threw these running things in the presentation. So when I walked in to do the discovery meeting, I said, doctor, I couldn't help but notice, your videos in the waiting room and all the things you do, but I also noticed that you're a runner. He says, yes, I am. I said, well, great. I'm a runner too. I'm a marathon runner. He goes, really? I said, yeah, what's your last race? And then he's telling me, I ran this. How'd you do? So now here we have not yet started the discovery meeting, and I'm creating what? I'm creating a relationship with this, and I'm warming it up. The other thing is use whatever assets you have. So I know some of you are health professionals yourselves, or you've worked at, in other arenas, maybe you're a medical biller or whatever. If there's anything that you can pull from who you are to who they are and just tie that together, that's fantastic. When I meet with a Spanish doctor, I will usually conduct a discovery meeting in Spanish, only because it connects us by our commonality that we at least share that, the Spanish. If we're from the same country, and it's, a male doctor, and I've actually done a few discovery meetings with Ecuadorian doctors here in Chicago. I'll talk about my father, and I'll talk about how my father was a doctor and how my father came to this country, and I'll make that connection, and it immediately makes a connection. When I meet with Polish doctors, I am not Polish. I don't look Polish, but my name is Polish. It's Lexi Nawrocki. And so I will pronounce my name in a Polish way. Oh, I'm Nawrocki, and then immediately warms it up. They're like, really? Oh, my husband's Polish and he speaks. That was a doctor this week that I met with. She's Polish. So I go off on the, and he taught me how to say good morning, which I already forgot, but I say it and I just really charm it out. My son goes to a Ukrainian school, and I'm very connected to Ukrainian community. I'm on the parent board of that school. So when I work in Ukrainian Village here in Chicago and I meet with Ukrainian doctors, I talk about my connection to St. Nicholas School, which is the Ukrainian school. They're also an MPO, so that connects it. Oh yeah, I know the school, and I sit on the board. One of the doctors I met with, he sits on the board of the school. So, whatever it takes to warm up the relationship, your discovery meeting is the only time you have to do it. If you watch the Meet On presentation, when I talked about creating that appointment with the warm contact, I said that I don't do meetings with office managers anymore. I don't do discovery meetings I've been burned too many times, and I'm just not doing that anymore. If the doctor can't meet with me, then the doctor can't meet with me, because I warm it up here. And if I don't have an opportunity to warm it up and I'm sitting with the doctor cold, and now I have product, because what do we do with the proposal? We bring product, and we bring, protocols, and we bring science, and we bring all this stuff, and now I'm a salesperson, and so just, those are the magical things with the discovery meetings. Absolutely have fun with them. They may be a little daunting at first. I'm going to open it up to questions soon, but I'm going to give you one last tip in the discovery meeting, and it is probably one of the most important things, and that is listen and don't give away the goods. You can ask questions to elicit more of a response. You can, take, like I said, the volley. You can do that, but do not, if they say that they send their patients to the Walgreens and they tell them to get Centrum, do not tell them how horrible that is. Do not start to talk about, if they're making their own educational materials, do not talk about, oh, we got this great system, wait till you see it. Because what will happen is that as the doctors answer the questions the way you want them to answer the questions, you're going to get very excited. You need to learn to bite your tongue. I have ruined many a discovery meetings because I did not bite my tongue, and I told the doctor how bad it was that they were giving Flintstones to the children. Yeah, I went there. So I tell you from experience, do not go there. Bite your tongue, and you will get a chance to talk at the proposal meeting. So now we're going to go ahead and open it up to questions. Okay. So I have a bunch here that I will start to read. Okay, where do we find the number line? That is actually a poster. You can find it in, I believe it's in the downloads in Unfranchise under nutraMetrix. You can order the brochures. The code is 13770, $35, and it comes with 20 each for the number system from 0 to 5, and also the goals pamphlet. And then you can go through Print Center to order the actual posters. Okay, so somebody said, my mentor says, never tell them their baby's ugly. Thank you, Bob. Exactly. I did tell them their baby was ugly, and that was the end of me. So I'll never do that again. Okay. Very good. Yes, Susan, zip it. I make it seem effortless. Well, these are the forms I actually have. When I first started just doing discovery meetings, I don't have those forms. And if I've walked away from somebody or a meeting's been canceled, I don't have the form. So I've done, the forms that I have here is about 30. I've probably done about 35 or close to 40 discovery meetings in my day. So that's why it's seamless. I wasn't, this wasn't like the first time I've done it. I think that as you do it more and more, you're gonna feel more comfortable. You're gonna get into your flow. You're gonna have fun with it. I don't get nervous about discovery meetings anymore. My palms used to sweat, and I used to like wipe them on my legs before I shook the doctor's hand because I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta shake his hand. Okay, so where's the new discovery form? The new discovery form is in the NC Practice Planning Guide, which is, everything's in there. The pre-call workshop I talked about, everything will be there. Yes, this video will be uploaded, so you can watch it multiple times so that you get better and better. That's really the best way to do it. Then somebody just mentioned about, had my family dentist answer these questions, but added the phrase, but not with any products. He was for staff incentives. Shall I write him off? No, no, not necessarily. Um, you know, if they're originally not going to start with any products, maybe they want a service. Maybe they want to provide, I don't know, GeneSnip or the wellness brochures or education. You know, it's up to you really, because if they're not going to start out with products, it's really hard to kind of get that BV flowing, is what I find. So I do like practices to start with initial orders and really focus on a few key products. But you know, you can set up a nutraMetrix account and people just do the brochures and education. What's going to happen is as the education increases, the commitment of the practice and the doctors will increase, and so will the patients. So that's really another one. Okay, very good. So, okay, so there's another one. Would you still bring up the anti-aging question to rheumatology practice? Yeah, I probably would. Keeping in mind they want to keep education on beauty products, you know, yeah, to paraben and gluten-free. I probably still would bring it up because don't forget, with anti-aging, it's not just topical products. It's also like it could be a prime ultra, you know, that they're interested in taking a look at. So yeah, I would still ask the question. Okay, so staff incentives. You know, it's interesting. I've talked to a few consultants whose health professionals are really doing fantastic with nutraMetrix. They all share something in common. They all share staff incentives in common. What type of staff incentives? It could be a particular percent of the retail sales for the month. It could be product at wholesale. It could be, you know, baskets of cheer of something. So maybe one month they have, you know, a spa day, or they have a, you know, a Lumiere basket that they give out. I mean, you know, it could be whatever the health professional feels comfortable doing. You know, I think it's definitely something that is important. And at least with the health professionals I work with, it always takes me a little bit of relationship building to get them to finally see the light. And, you know, the answers I usually get once I'm implementing the account is, well, I pay my staff and I pay my staff well, so I don't need to do anything. Doctor, and then I just have to kind of work with them and baby steps, and I kind of move them towards agreeing that they should do something for their staff. Okay, very good. So it looks like we've run out of questions. So with that, what I will do is I will say good night to you all. Um, we have one more. What has been the biggest obstacle or reason that an office does not do well? Okay, so that one is, there's a couple of things, but we can move that one towards when we talk about implementation, because there's actually a lot of things that we can discuss with that. So great, wonderful. Well, have yourselves a great night, and we'll see you on the next session.